Welcome back to Generational Dr. Wealth, a personal finance show for doctors. This podcast is for educational entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Always consult your own professionals.
Hello. Welcome back to the Generational Dr. Wealth show, a personal finance show for doctors. My name is Dr. Jermaine Affetti, and this episode we're going to be focused on cut the wealth killers. What's the biggest wealth killer that we think about out there? Outside of taxes, the next thing is going to be debt. Now, I do want to say this. There aren't many doctors out there that are not carrying some form of debt around, but we have to classify what kind of debt is appropriate and which kind of debt do we need to get out of our life as soon as humanly possible. So the easiest way is to break down debt into two different buckets. Bucket number one being personal debt. This is credit cards, this is personal mortgage, this is personal cars, this is personal loans. All those different things fall underneath the personal debt side of things. Now, one thing that also falls underneath the personal debt side of things that we're going to put aside for now is student loans. That usually falls underneath the personal debt. That's completely okay. But I'm going to tell you why we should start thinking about that underneath bucket number two, which is business debt. So again, personal debt being the first bucket and the second bucket being business debt. Business debt being meaning if you purchased a practice, if you doing continual education on a credit card, if you are purchasing a building for your practice. And I like to think about student loans being a form of business debt. Now, traditionally, that's not true. It usually falls underneath personal debt. But the reason I like to think about that is because without that form of debt, there's no way you can practice the kind of doctorate that you personally are practicing. Again, if you're a pharmacist, if you're a medical doctor, if you're a dentist, it's almost impossible for you to get to that point without taking on some type of debt. Now, there are some people who can get there. There are some people who get full ride scholarships, those who serve our military, those who have family backing. However you get there, if you're able to get debt free, do it. Absolutely do it. But for a vast majority out there, you're gonna have to take on some form of debt. And I do want to first, before we get too deep into this episode, let you know, it is okay. It is okay to take on some form of debt to get to this point of being a doctor. What happens is I see a lot of people taking on a lot of personal baggage sometimes and saying like, I can't believe I took on that much debt. I just start beating yourself up. What's happened has happened at this point. And what I'd like to do is advise other individuals who are currently coming up, have a 3-step process that can eliminate or lower the amount of debt load that you're taking. Now, if you're a student out there or you're thinking about becoming a doctor or you have a mentee or a child who is interested in becoming a doctor one day, this is the easy steps to reduce debt. Number one, you want to stay in state. I can't stress how much just staying in state changes everything. This is a key because when you stay in state, your state that you're from is paying a portion of your fees and your tuition. So it goes a long way. Step number two, you want to stay public. Now, again, if you go private and you have scholarships to help subsidize it, good for you. But a general rule of thumb is if debt is something that is on your mind, you want to stay public because when you stay in state and you stay public, more than likely you've already reduced your possible debt burden in half. And step number three, you want to make sure you're applying to scholarships, you're applying to grants, anything that is available to you, you want to make sure you're applying to. In the state of North Carolina, we have what we call FELS. It's Federal Education Loan Service. And if you're in the healthcare services, they'll provide, at the time of when I was in school, $14,000 per year to help assist offsetting the cost of your education. All you have to do is commit to stay in the state. For every year that they pay for, you have to commit to stay. And I just finished up my 4 years. So again, you want to try to find every possible avenue possible to reduce that debt burden. So now we have our personal debt and we have our business debt. Those two debts work hand in hand to create our overall debt burden. Now the question is, which debts do we need to attack viciously? And that's why I said, I always get questions on, should I pay my student loans off ASAP? And it's kind of crazy when I receive that question and someone still has credit card debt. Because you got to kind of think about it like this. If you're putting money into the stock market or you're paying off your student loans and your student loans are at 5% and maybe the stock market gets you 8 to 10%, but your credit card debt is at 25%, we got to kind of understand the urgency of what we're working with here. So the way to kind of think about it is, as is written out in our Doctor's Blueprint to Financial Freedom, anything above 8% requires your immediate attention. After you've done number one, which is ensure your foundation, and step number two, which is get 1 month of income saved up. Step number three, you need to attack anything above 8% with ferocity. And the reason you want to do that is because there's very few Investments, there's very few accounts you can put your money into that can get higher than 8% consistently and without risk. So that's why we like to keep that as our benchmark, because again, as time continues to go on, you're going to continue to accrue more kinds of debt. But the goal is to do it responsibly. See, once you get through school, now it's all on you. What kind of debt do you want to assume? Do you want to purchase a new car? Do you want to purchase a new house? Do you want to purchase a practice? And a rule of thumb I like to work by is that I don't like to assume any debt that will not increase income. So for instance, a car. A car can be a great tool and it can be a great usefulness to you. But the way I think about it is if it's not producing income, there's no way I personally want to take out debt to be able to get that car. Now understand, there are scenarios in time where you don't have the income, but you need a reliable car. And unfortunately, you have to do what you have to do to get that car in that scenario. But if all things held consistent and you have the ability to either buy something used or be able to pay it off cash, that's usually a better way to go as we continue to work through all the steps. Now, to systematically go about taking care of your debt, the first thing you want to do is get organized. You want to line up all your different kinds of debts in number one, you want to organize them by the interest rate. And by doing that, it gives you a pretty clear understanding of what debt is costing you the most. See, I like to take that kind of method because then again, if I have something at 25% interest and 15% interest, I can systematically take care of those. There's something called the debt snowball where you can organize your debt from the smallest amount to the largest amount and start tackling the smallest amounts to build up some velocity as you take care of the bigger debts. But personally, I like to focus on the numbers. Line up your debts, and the ones that have the highest interest rates is the one you want to attack first. Again, because most doctors out there are scientifically minded. So by giving a formula like this, it resonates with our mind much more easier. So now that you understand which debt is the most, that's the one you want to attack first. Again, number one is usually going to be the credit cards. And then number two is usually a personal loan or automobile loan, usually somewhere along those lines there. And then as you continue to tick down, it's usually like your student loan somewhere there, maybe your mortgage somewhere along there. So you have a good understanding of which ones are costing you the most, and then you can systematically and continuously attack them until you get to that even line, which is 8%. So once you've organized all your debts, you understand which ones are above 8% and which ones are below 8%. And the ones that are above 8% are the ones we take care of now, and the ones that are below 8% are the ones we take care of later. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to spend too much time in this debt phase and not get to the invest phase. But once we've taken care of everything that's above 8%, we freed ourselves to now we can get to now step number 4, step number 5, step number 6, and continuously move on until the last step of the entire Dr. Wealth blueprint, which is take care of lowest interest debt. But for now, our goal is to take care of the high stuff that is killing our wealth and get back to building wealth. That's the ultimate goal. How do we get to a path where we're building wealth systematically without things eating and eroding away at our wealth? So again, let's take another step back. What I receive as far as people usually asking is not usually the personal loans or the automobile loans. It's usually going to be the student loans. So that's why I want to take another second to really break that down. Now, why is student loans such a burden on our mental? It's because usually it's the largest amount outside of mortgage. So when you think about a mortgage, you've already signed up for a 15 or 30-year mortgage. So mentally, it's not that draining because you know, okay, I'm going to be living in this house while I'm paying the debt. But for a lot of us, we've taken on $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 of debt for education that we've done in our past life. And it's kind of hard to imagine like, wow, I can't believe all that money went into the education, but I'm not even really using it now. But you kind of change your reference a little bit. By you taking on that massive amount of debt and student loans, you've given yourself the ability to have a higher earning potential to now practice the kind of doctoring that you do. Again, I'm a dentist personally. And in our field, it is very common for somebody to have easily over $300,000 in student debt. And the first thing I have to do is get people through that mental barrier of, oh my goodness, I messed up. Because you didn't mess up. You are helping people, you're saving people. And again, as dentistry, we're transforming people's smiles, giving them confidence, rebuild their lives. One of my friends, he's an anesthesiologist. He's maintaining people's healthy mindset and bodies while they're going through intense surgery. Whatever kind of doctor that you practice, you are helping and saving people. And unfortunately, this information isn't free. For you to go through those 4 years is not free, and you have to accrue some type of debt, either through somebody paying for it or you being personally responsible to get to that point. So first thing, again, I want to get us to the point that we are not feeling guilty about this debt. Now, number two, I do want to say, as far as that goes, we are responsible for this debt. We've heard a lot of different things about possible forgiveness coming and saving us. For most people, that's not going to come. Now, if you are in one of the professions that have forgiveness, for instance, if you serve for 15, 20 years, whatever that matches your current doctrine, then I say if that's part of your financial plan, then go for it. But first, I want you to weigh the cost. Is staying in a nonprofit or staying in a particular sector to be able to receive that forgiveness worth a decrease in income? Now, if there's no decrease in income, you actually love where you work, I say go for it. That's a double whammy. You're getting compensated fairly, you're loving where you work, and then you're also getting forgiveness. But in dentistry, for instance, right, there are not that too many nonprofit sectors for us to receive forgiveness. But I do know medical friends that I have that work for hospitals that are usually considered nonprofit. So again, you want to check with your HR and figure out, do I qualify for future forgiveness? And if you do, just an added perk to a job that you love. But I would not put myself in a job or travel to a city just for forgiveness. That's just me personally. Now let's talk about what it means to be a doctor. So now for dentists, for vets, and for medical doctors, we have something usually available to us called a doctor loan. You can use that to purchase a home, 0% down, or very little, and 3% in some scenarios, where you can purchase the home of your dreams. And now when you get out, you'll be able to purchase the car of your dreams and go on a vacation of your dreams and do so many things that were of your dreams. But I do want to say you have to be responsible with the debt that you assume. And that's why that first purchase you make, once you get that DR in front of your name, is going to be so key. If the first purchase you make, unfortunately, is a liability, you have now stunted your ability to build wealth at a fast rate. For instance, I love cars just like we all do. But if you're able to maintain that first car you have right after you graduate for, let's say, 2 years and get into a house before you get into a car, you have now changed the cycle in which you're going to be building wealth. So instead of you paying towards a depreciating asset, which means something that goes down in value over time, you're paying into an appreciating asset, which goes up over time. But again, you don't want to just buy a house just for the sake of somebody said, buy a house. If it fits into your plan, is going to be key. Now, you have to choose systematically, how do you want to assume debt? If it's up to me, I say be very judicious on how you take on the debt. As I said earlier, if it's not going to be bringing me income, I do not want to assume debt for it. You're going to have to figure out what personal rule works for you and your household. If you know, having a car is very important to me, then that may be how you want to go. Now, when it comes to personal loans, you probably don't want to be taking on personal loans unless you absolutely need it. So now, like early on, whenever you're going through graduation and licensures, it's honestly the time that I see people take out personal loans the most, because it's a very tough time. It's like you're in between being a doctor and not a doctor. So for instance, in dentistry, when you're a fourth year, you're taking a lot of different licensures. You're applying to different state boards and everything like that. And I mean, that could be thousands of dollars. But at that time, you don't have income. So I see a lot of people taking out personal loans during that time to make sure they can get to that point of becoming a doctor. Now, personally, I look at that as business debt, because it's another expense that you're incurring to eventually do the business of dentistry. So for you, you want to kind of think to yourself, that's a lens that I like to use. Is this debt I'm taking on going to push my income forward, or is this a debt that is not going to push my income forward and it is just for personal pleasure? And again, there's no issue with it being for personal pleasure. So I know a lot of people like to use their credit cards for vacations or a big purchase so they can get their points. Me personally, I do the same thing. But personally, I don't like to carry a revolving amount from month to month. See, credit card debt is okay, but carrying a credit card balance, no way. I got that from the money guys. So as you're going about purchasing things, if you're going to use your credit card to get the points, that's completely okay. But I would mentally change my mind to treat it like a debit card. If I can't pay the full amount off, I'm not going to take it out. So again, As doctors, we have so much afforded to us and so much available to us because you have that DR in front of your name. But understand, you are also a financial prey to those out there who want to separate you from your money. So you got to be extra judicious about what you say yes to and what you don't say yes to. Because what you say no to can really set you and propel you forward in a very fast way. So I have one very close friend, and we sat down and we went through all of her debt. And when she went through this, she cried. She told me, I do not know how I got into this much debt. Right now, she's probably sitting at about $600,000 in debt, half of it being from student loans, and the other half coming from just being a doctor. And sometimes we want to feel like we're a doctor and we spend in a way that doesn't necessarily match the values that we align with. And she doesn't own a home, but she does have a car. And the other $300,000, again, $300,000 being from student debt, the other $300,000 being consumer debt, which falls underneath the personal side. See, none of those debts that she took out on that $300,000 side of things was to push her business forward or to increase her income. They were for vacations, they were for eating out, they were from shopping, they were from all the different things that we do to make us feel like everything we're putting into this is actually worth it. But I told her, listen, you're going to be good with me regardless if you travel to Europe 2-3 times a year or you get the favorite car. Regardless, I'm still going to love you for who you are. And sometimes we need to take a step back and realize the ones that we're trying to impress don't even know us and probably don't really even care about what we're doing. And if we think about it that way, like, how do I impress the people that I care about the most, my loved ones? And for a lot of people out there, just spending quality time is enough. We don't need to necessarily travel to Europe 2-3 times a year. It could literally just be spending quality time, shutting it down, cutting off the phones for a weekend, and just spending time and seeing those that you love. And that's the thing about debt. Sometimes we spend thinking that it's going to make us feel good or it's going to make people feel more positively about us. But in reality, the most expensive thing you can possibly spend to change the mindset of those around you about how they feel about you is time. And time is free, but it's very expensive. So when you think about your time, you want to give it to those that you love because in exchange from time and value is the ultimate exchange of goods when it comes to building and growing rapport and love for those that you continue want to build with. So that's why I like to take a step back when it comes to cutting the wealth killers. Because it's so easy to accrue debt, not understanding that what we're accruing debt for is not going to necessarily fix the problems that we're trying to solve for. So if you think about it, simply put, you have 2 buckets. You have a personal debt bucket and you have a business debt bucket. A personal debt bucket you want to make sure you limit, and a business debt bucket you want to make sure you take it out judiciously with one goal in mind. How do I increase income? If the debt that I'm thinking about taking on is not going to increase my income, I'm probably not going to take it out. But if I absolutely have to, guess what? If an emergency comes up, this is why we do step 2, which is save 1 month of income. So if something comes up, you won't have to feel the need to go right into your credit cards to solve the issue. Instead, you go into your 1 month of income to rectify an issue. So we're not having to always go back to credit cards every time something comes up. You see how these steps start to build upon one another? So then by the time you look up, you have all your insurances covered. You have your 1 month of income. And then now you cut all the debt that is above 8%. And now we can focus on moving on to now continuing to build on your freedom fund, because now you have clarity of mind to know that there's nothing that's behind me killing my wealth as I'm charging forward across this thing called life. This is Generational Dr. Wealth. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Peace.
This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be financial, legal, or medical advice. We are not acting as your personal financial advisors. The strategies discussed are general in nature and may not be appropriate for your individual situations. You should always consult your own qualified financial, tax, and legal professionals before making decisions about your money. The host and guests are not responsible for any actions you take based on the information shared on this show.